Nothing says summer like a barbecue. President Eisenhower loved grilling so much, he put a Weber on the White House roof. You could see the smoke and smell the steak from Pennsylvania Avenue. Not everyone in Washington can man the grill like Ike. This weekend was Father's Day, and Chuck Schumer posted a picture of himself manning the grill filled with hot dogs and a pale gray burger patty. Why no smoke, no sizzle? Because Schumer doesn't have the heat knobs cranked up. Crying Chuck slapped a slice of cheese on a raw patty. He's serving salmonella and controls the Senate. How did we get here? And who stages a barbecue? Democrats are trying to fake and bake their way into re-election, and they're using props and actors to sell their script. This weekend, Biden held a Hollywood fundraiser, emceed by Jimmy Kimmel, an ABC host, the same network hosting the second presidential debate, not corrupt at all. Special guests included George Clooney, Julia Roberts, and Jack Black.
When the president wins in November, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a sweet shout out in his victory speech for what I gave up to be here. Because when democracy is at stake, Jack Black answers the call. Mr. President, you're welcome.
Barack Obama was there. Bill Clinton couldn't make it this time. I wonder why. So it was an Obama-Biden reunion.
We have the highest unemployment, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We have more people. We've had over 15 million people brand new hired into the workforce. You know, my son says you ought to have we all have various short-term descriptions for your jobs, for what you accomplished. And you should say Joe Jobs.
That was the best Biden looked all night. Because a few minutes later, the president stopped moving, and Obama had to escort him off the stage. Watch. That's nothing new. Biden's been pulled around like a puppet his whole presidency. Even the Easter Bunny tells Joe where to go. None of those videos were deceptively edited to make Joe look frail or confused. Just that's the way he looks, always. But the Democrat media matrix says these videos are a vast right-wing conspiracy. They're saying what we just showed you is disinformation.
There seems to be a sort of rash of videos that have been edited to make the president appear especially frail or mentally confused.
Yeah, and I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation.
They're saying Biden's never lost. He never needs a helping hand. They're all saying the viral videos of Biden freezing, wandering, and glitching are dangerous social media deepfakes.
There's a growing and insidious trend in right-wing media, broadcast, print, and social media. It is to take highly misleading and selectively edited videos of President Biden directly from Republican National Committee social media accounts and then use those videos to spread messages virally to cast doubt on President Biden's fitness for office.
If Biden's so fit, why are they not releasing the Her tapes? They're going to start suppressing these Biden videos like they did the laptop. They'll call it election misinformation and have it flagged and censored to save democracy, of course. They just put a guy in jail for a meme. 7 months for a meme. And remember, Obama blamed the Benghazi attack on a YouTube video and arrested the guy who posted it. Biden learned from the best. And now Obama's sweeping Joe off the stage like he's still in charge. Maybe because he is.
People would ask me, knowing what you know now, do you wish like you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. Wow. I'd be fine with that.
As we mentioned last week, Democrats were using Biden as nothing more than a stand-in, a MacGuffin, keep him around until November 5th without expiring, win the election, force Joe to step down, and promote Kamala to president days into the second term, and throw a DEI party for 4 years. The orders to the media were simple. Keep Biden from looking too old, too incompetent, or too misguided. That's why they're deploying the disinformation strategy on the videos. If Biden looks too old, they can't drag him across the finish line and switch him out for Kamala. And they have a problem, because just within a week, he froze at a Juneteenth party, wandered off into an Italian field, and got yanked off the stage by Barack. Binder, has been in hiding for weeks, was asked today about the Juneteenth deep freeze. Listen.
Okay, let's talk about Juneteenth. The president stood there listening to the music, and he didn't dance. Excuse me, I did not know not dancing was a health issue. That is a weird thing to actually. There were some folks who were not dancing either.
We don't blame Biden for not dancing at a Juneteenth party. He's an 81-year-old white guy from Delaware. We're just worried he's not moving at all. He doesn't have to get down like Dougie Fresh, but he has to look alive. Trump looks alive and well in Detroit, of all places.
President Trump, I'm so humbled that you would be here. President Obama never came to the hood, so to speak, right? President Joe Biden, he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Very humble, really nice. Thank you.
Trump's not freezing up, and we know he can dance. We've seen him do the YMCA. All Americans, especially black Americans, feel the difference between the Trump and Biden presidencies.
Look at black voters under the age of 50. Holy cow, folks. Holy cow. Look at this. Joe Biden was up by 80 points among this group back at this point in 2020. Look at where that margin has careened down towards. It's now just, get this, 37 points. That lead has dropped by more than half, Mr. Berman. I just never seen anything like this. I'm like speechless.
He's winning every swing state, and a new poll has Trump up by 18 points in Iowa. If Trump's up 18 in Iowa, Biden can kiss Wisconsin goodbye. A new forecast from The Economist gives Trump a 72% chance of winning. That's a new high. Biden can't pull it off, and Democrats are starting to feel it. So they're left with three options. The first one, drop the mother of all hoaxes. Historian Victor Davis Hanson says this, quote, "Do not be surprised when told of a secret Trump plan uncovered to round up critics in 2025 and send them to camps, or lurid revelations about evidence that Trump is in worse physical mental shape than a debilitated Biden." And right on cue, here's your round up critics hoax.
Let's imagine he's just blowing off steam. He's saying, you know, if we could find that leaker, I'd like to take him out of the back of the White House on the South Lawn and have him shot. When he's frustrated, when he's blowing off steam, again, to use Barr's formulation, is someone whose way in which he exercises his frustration is to casually talk about having people who work for him shot, executed in some way. Well, I don't know if that's by hanging or by a guillotine or by the firing squad.
Guillotine. Okay, that's a new one. And that Trump's in worse shape than Biden hoax, right on cue.
As the journalist who spent the most time with him, I have to say he couldn't remember things. He couldn't even remember me. We spent an hour together in 2021 in May, and then a few months later, I went back to the White House. I went back to Trump Tower to talk to him about his time in the White House, and he had this vacant look on his face, and I said, "Do you remember me?" And he said, "No."
But Biden couldn't remember when he was vice president. Forgive Trump for not remembering one of the thousands of people who interviewed him. The hoaxes aren't hitting, which is why option 2 could be the wild card. The Washington Post is suggesting replacing Kamala Harris with Hillary Clinton. Ready? Inarguably, a significant obstacle to a Biden win is Kamala Harris, whose low popularity has not been improved by her lackluster performance as vice president. We are left to speculate about motive, but the effect of Clinton inserting herself into the news cycle is to remind voters that, but for her defeat in 2016, we wouldn't be stuck in this old white men dilemma. No one has mentioned her as a possible running mate for Biden, far as I know. But why not replace Harris with Clinton? At 76, she might want no part of it, but it's hard to retire when you feel your job isn't done. Option 3. Daily Mail reporter Charlie Spearing says he's hearing rumblings that there could be a secret Democrat plot to replace Biden this summer. The Democrat Avengers, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, have deliberately thrown down the gauntlet for an early debate to stress test Sleepy. So Democrats have 3 plays left. Which one is it? Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.